Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tried Before. This time, Deep Space Nine, Meridian on It's All Been Tried Before. Get into the Meridian, out of the Meridian, anti-Meridian, AM, PM. We're always there on Facebook. It's All Been Tried Before. We're keeping you posted on what we're up to. You can keep what's coming up, what's gone before. Go out there. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun memes. We're very self-deprecating, self-effacing, as my dad would say. So come meet us out there on Facebook. And if you're not on Facebook, well, you know what? Maybe this is the one reason to be on Facebook. Come engage with us. In the meantime, engage with this. This is us discussing Meridian on It's All Been Trekked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. Your regular crew is here.
This is Steven.
And Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. We are here to talk Meridian. The Prime Meridian now. Just Meridian. First impressions.
I liked it. I kept expecting it to go certain ways that it didn't. I don't think it was a home run. I'm trying to diversify I don't think it was the best.
Well, now that we're in DS9, making baseball metaphors is extra appropriate.
I thought it was a solid, maybe a double. I was surprised that there was the one list that said that it had it in like the top 10 worst, but there was a qualifier with that. I thought, because I'm like that. I don't see that. I thought it was gonna. I mean, it's very much a planet of the week, but I thought it was a very interesting planet. And we'll get deeper into that. I thought it explained why this is the planet of the week and why there's only so many people there. They literally are like, there's only 30 of us. I'm like, thank you for telling me that. So I didn't have
finally.
I appreciated that. So I thought there was a lot of, actually, we'll get into the research I did. I have a top 10 list to get into later, but we'll get there.
I thought it was funny that the computer pointed out something that Stephen often talks about, which is just, these are the only people on the planet.
I appreciate that very much.
I don't know. I could see how it could end up being one of the worst. Honestly, it just the concept was interesting as far as the planet goes, but just the romance was forced. Or it really felt that way for me.
I have stuff on that too. You guys will not be surprised when we get into that as well. But
and Jimmy. I wouldn't use the word spoiled, but I think both of you said something to the effect from the last episode that you were discussing some problems with the technology or the idea of what was happening.
Oh yeah, the AI.
Yeah, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, that storyline I didn't care for at all. We'll get deep. I don't know if we'll get deep into that, but we'll get into well. I'll stop talking for now. Jimmy, your first impressions.
Yep. My first impression was it wasn't a terrible episode, but it wasn't great. I think DS9 is rapidly moving on from these Play of the Week episodes. And this was one of the last ones. It failed on a lot of levels. Part of it was the super forced, rushed romance, as Keith has already made mention of. It had a lot of interesting concept moments in the episode, but overall it was less than the sum of its parts, and I think it pretty much failed at what it was trying to do. Especially for DS9. I think in season 6 or 7 of Next Gen it would be in the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
For this, I want to put it towards the bottom because DS9's been better than this.
I think
this is season 1 DS9. This isn't, and even then it would have been middle to bottom.
Less than the sum of its parts might be a good way, because I definitely liked a lot of the parts, and then there were some parts I did not like at all, or didn't like that much. But since you guys have both kind of brought up I think the fast romance, I felt the same way, because I was like, as much as I liked the dirtiness of it, I'll just say dirtiness, horniness. We'll get one of that, but I'm gonna. This is a episode I reference a lot, Requiem from Methuselah. You guys may remember. Forget. In fact, I thought at the end of this episode, I was waiting for somebody to come in and mind meld with Dax and be like, forget. But mainly because I also thought, like, man, this is fast to be like, yep, this is a guy. Like, it's like, why don't you guys just do it, and then maybe the spell will be broken. But it wasn't. So I agree with you guys on that. That's very valid. And to get to and I guess we're off and running now. You know, I have notes on that first scene, but I I'm a little thrown whenever they're on the Defiant this week, especially. I was like, what? And I asked this a couple weeks ago. You know, when they first got on the Defiant, I was like, who's back at base? And I know we talked about some of the people that might be there, but I think that also lends itself to that Planet of the Week. And like you said, Jim, we're going to get fewer and fewer of those. But it's also, and we talked about this on one of our special episodes, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, when in its second season, all of a sudden they were on a starship, you know. So, and that didn't help that show either. So, anyway.
Well, one of the other longer synopsis I saw on IMDb said, like, despite the Dominion threat, Cisco decides they should still explore the Gamma Quadrant. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how you have to phrase it to make it make sense that they're out there exploring planets.
Yeah,
yeah,
they do say that. Yeah. Like, well, we're supposed to. I said I would. We said we would. We got to do it. Yep.
Yeah, that in of itself, you're right. And of course, they don't have the Romulan attaché on board, so they can't even use the cloak. So what use is the Defiant? Back to the beginning of the episode, Kira replicates coffee and tells Odo it should be a little too hot, which I thought was really like a cute moment.
Are either of you guys coffee achievers?
No.
I mean, I have drank coffee in the past. It's just something that I don't care as much about as someone who really likes coffee would. It's just it's more of a tool for me, and now I don't even just use instant, and it's fine if I ever even need it.
I mean, and I mean, Coke or Mountain Dew is my stupid morning thing or whatever. But I just felt like, and this is just my anti-coffee bias. I mean, if you love it, and that's cool. I'm just not into it. Ironically, I'm into coffee flavored things, but I don't want to drink coffee. But it seems like they could have come up with something better in the galaxy than coffee. I don't like the idea that Earth somehow, but it makes sense that Starbucks just took over the whole galaxy.
Well, a lot of the DS9
are you gonna start your day?
Ractagino, which is
that's right.
Coffee. That's Klingon coffee, but yeah. No, it didn't bother me that it was coffee. I liked the scene. I thought it was cute. Yeah. And then we went into a very old trope where an alien comes and hits on Kira, and she's like, "This is my lover, Odo." Before we get too far past that, because that was fun in of itself, that alien, Tyron, was played by Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah.
First appearance of Jeffrey Combs in Star Trek. Jeffrey Combs is best known for Reanimator, The Frighteners, Would You Rather, and Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He will be in 32 episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Thankfully, not as this character.
Is he always in makeup? Have you makeup?
Almost always. So this, I'm pretty sure this is the only time he appears as this character.
Yeah.
He has two reoccurring characters on DS9. He plays a reoccurring Ferengi that will show up later this season named Brunt. And then starting next season, he also plays the main reoccurring Vorta. So you've already met the Vorta. They're like the sleazy members of the Dominion that negotiate for the founders. He's the main Vorta. And seasons 4, 5, 6, and 7, he will play both reoccurring characters in all 4 of those seasons. So he has 2 reoccurring characters simultaneously. He only makes, I'm pretty sure, a 1-episode appearance in Voyager as a totally different character, of course. Let me double check. Yeah, he's only in 1 episode of Voyager. But then he has a major reoccurring role in Star Trek Enterprise as well as an Andorian. So again, your makeup. Okay. I think it's 11 episodes in 4 seasons. And then more recently, he's done a bunch of video games too. More recently, he's done 3 episodes of Star Trek Lower Decks as a murderous computer.
Yeah.
Agamus.
Saw Jeffrey Combs in Reanimator. Have you guys seen Reanimator?
I've heard of it. I don't think I ever actually watched it.
It's a really good movie. It's a very 90s horror movie, or maybe it's late 80s, really.
I would think
Barbara
80s,
Crampton's
maybe.
Great in it. You guys may know Barbara Crampton. I'm gonna put that on the special episode list just because I think it's a really good movie. It's very funny. It's very much like this episode. It's very horny, and his character is fascinating. Yeah, anyway, it's funny. It's funny. It's dirty. It's gross. It's all those things. So anyway, check out Reanimator.
I added it to the specials list. Yeah. I will say with the Vorta, you'll see his face a lot better than this, obviously. The fact that I think when New Trek really took off, a lot of fans were like, Jeffrey Combs is your character that, like, the character actor that plays multiple aliens in multiple Star Trek series. Where is he? And I'm actually kind of disappointed Lower Decks is the only one of New Trek that's used him.
Yeah.
I really hope he shows up in Star Trek Academy or something.
Yeah, because he's not, he can't be that old. He could be.
That's a great.
That would mean I'm old.
He is. Oh, IMDb doesn't have his birth year.
I'm gonna say 65.
97. No, he's 69.
Okay, all right, a little.
So yeah, he's totally able. Should be able, as far as I know. He doesn't have any debilitating disease. He still does. He's still an active actor, but it does look like he does mostly animation these days.
I did note in this opening scene that apparently prominent foreheads is the in thing in the 24th century, because Kira has her hair pulled all the way back. Odo has his usual thing, and then this guy shows up, Torin or whatever, Tyron, and I'm like, okay, I guess that's the thing. And then the whole Odo Kira thing, I just wrote.
So
and then poor sweet Odo, which is something I don't think we've ever said before. After she leaves, he's like looking at his hand like in a, I'll never wash this hand again. And to me, I think that's where that storyline peaks right here, and then it's just downhill from there. But
I mean, that story arc of Odo having a thing for Kira will definitely be followed up upon.
That part I'm okay with. Sorry, the Tyron part I don't necessarily care for. The Odo part I think is fascinating.
I think that's about the 5th hint in the last season they've dropped that Odo's into Kira. They keep dropping those hints.
That part I appreciated.
Stephen was saying that it peaked for this episode. The whole
the Tyron storyline, not the.
I got that.
Guys. Okay.
So Tyron, that's the name of the alien.
That's
Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah, I don't know. This is another thing. One of the things I think I appreciated a lot, was able to appreciate a lot more now than I would have at the time. Though I don't remember seeing any of these episodes. So these last couple, I've just absolutely no memory of having seen. So I probably hadn't, because of the quality of his performance. He was just so good at hitting those notes and being just a little bit over the top, and then the pomposity and everything. Just, it was delicious.
I think you're right, and I think that's why they invited him back so much. I doubt he came in with the mandate that you're going to be in our show a lot of times. So yeah, no, I agree, Keith. He was a very impressive one-off guest star, even though the character was freaking awful, in my opinion. So a planet appears in front of Defiant. Basically, it is in an intersecting dimension that it disappears for 60 years at a time. And while they're gone, they're just pure consciousness, but they're still aware of everything.
Pure energy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That seems to me like, I know they started as corporeal. They talk about that they were settlers that started on this planet as corporeal. But given that they spend most of the time in the energy and they can still spend time together and still do all that thing, why are they trying to hang on to the corporeal part of it? Why not just embrace energy?
Would you want to do that?
The whole planet's going to be destroyed and they'll cease to exist. But
I think you said it right. Well, I think both he and Steven said it right. It's the horniness of it. It's just
it's a very horny episode. But then Star Trek has often been very horny in the past.
Yeah, and I guess that makes sense now that I don't know why I just didn't dawn on me until now. It's like, I have 2 days to bang you. Let's get to it.
We've seen this episode of the original series. We've seen this episode of The Next Generation.
But
it's not unfamiliar. And Next Gen frequently made it like Troy. They did like make it a female cast member again. Whereas original series, I think it was Spock, but it's still like, it's becoming an ugly trope that I don't like. I did appreciate the line of how far down do the spots go all the way, which is something that's stuck in my mind for 30 years. This episode was 30 years ago. So.
That guy had the lines and the moves, and it makes sense. He's like going for it. He's like, I'm only on shore leave for so long, And this drove me to, and I think I wrote here. I wrote horniest episodes. Is this one of the horniest episodes of Star Trek?
No. I mean, it's no justice.
Well, funny you should mention that. So I wanted to use the specific term horny, so I did find the 10 horniest episodes of Star Trek ranked by cultural impact. Susanna Polo did this just for Valentine's Day this year. And so they're also ranked by cultural impact. So I'll just go through these real quick. I'm gonna skip. I'll mention the ones that aren't ones we've covered so far, even though I can't really comment on. Number 10, Justice.
That's number 10.
Yeah, I think so.
That's got to be the top 3.
I don't think it's about like. I think that's more from the audience's perspective of seeing the people rather than.
And they gave it a 0 for cultural impact, so which will play into. So I think the way I look at horniness, that episode made me hornier than the episode of Star Trek, but that doesn't mean that people on there were horny, although they probably were. Conundrum, which was from season 5, which is, I think, Riker. 2 different women decide it's exactly the right time to start a sexual relationship with Commander Riker, despite a sudden shipwide bout of amnesia, which maybe that's the perfect time. So you remember that one. Favorite Son, which is a Voyager season 3 episode that I don't know. And Fair Haven, which is also Voyager.
Not yet. Yeah, Fair Haven's pretty horny.
This one makes sense. Sub Rosa, because our girl Beverly. This is one that I thought of right away too. The Naked Now.
Yes. I couldn't think of the name. I kept thinking Amok Time, but
Amok Time's horny too. But
sorry, Naked was it Naked Time? Is that what it was?
The Naked Now. And
right, but I mean, but it was
it
was a callback to the
Naked Time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's when Tasha and Data hook up, which is, you guys know a lot of the Star Trek groups on Facebook and otherwise, and that comes up a lot. Mirror Mirror from the original series, which I completely
that's horny.
That one, that's got to be near the top for me. The Menagerie, also, I mean, Susan Oliver is my favorite from season 1.
That is not a super horny episode.
That's another one that just makes me horny. I think that one's more sweet. I mean, you got the Orion girl.
The Cage is far hornier than Menagerie.
Yeah.
But it's got Menage right in it.
So this one's high. I feel like this one's high for culture rating. You got a culture rating of 9, a horny rating of 3. Plato's Stepchildren, Kirk and Uhura kiss.
Yeah.
Forced to kiss, which I guess could make it
still
horny.
Not as horny as Justice, but okay.
I agree. Amok Time.
Yep.
And I think that was their number 1. Yeah, and it
got
a 10.
Time is not number 1.
Yeah, and I mean, again, she was going with cultural impact or whatever. But there is kind of the I have to have sex or kill my best friend.
I mean, just off the top of my head, the top 3 horny episodes of Star Trek that we've seen so far, because I think Fairhaven's pretty horny, but I've forgotten enough specifics. But it's definitely The Naked Time, Justice, Amok Time. That's it. Those are the top 3 horny episodes.
I like this.
Naked Now, honorable mention.
Yeah. And there was one that was like, what's just the horniest series, but I didn't read that because I haven't seen them all yet. But although actually the headline of a couple other articles was essentially that TNG is surprisingly the sexiest or the horniest.
Oh, I was going to say the original series is the horniest series.
I think it is. I mean, just Bill Tease's
costumes. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you have it.
They can get away with more in TNG though.
So do we think we wouldn't put this in the top 10 then?
No.
Okay. I thought it was super horny, but I think as we go through that list.
It is, but Star Trek's super horny. It doesn't break the top 10.
I think you're right. And I may be just like our guy. Who is our guy? That Durrell? Is that Durrell?
Oren?
Yeah. I can see him falling in love with her.
Right.
And being like, we could all be convinced by Terry Farrell and be like, hey.
Oh, I was Torin is Major Kira. Yeah, Durrell. Yes, Brett Cullen.
Yeah.
Who we've not talked about yet. Brett Cullen, best known for The Dark Knight Rises, Ghost Rider, Joker, and Person of Interest. So a lot of superhero movies. Recently, he was Thomas Wayne in Joker. Person of Interest, he did 11 episodes. 145 credits overall. He was one of those faces that looks familiar, but I didn't know his name, and this is his only Star Trek credit. So,
but he's got a ton. No, you just listed his really good.
Huge. I mean, for Keith's benefit, I will say that he has only 145 acting credits with 2 upcoming. Thank you, Keith. With 2 upcoming. So 140, only 147, which I would never say only 2. That's a great number. Going back to Torin, he wants the holo program of Major Kira. Shouldn't he just call Barclay?
Yeah.
I mean, it's essentially a Barclay retread. I did think it was very odd. He had a whole strip of gold latinum up his sleeve. That's got to be really heavy. It's got to fall out of the sleeve really easily. That doesn't seem practical at all.
Well, that's why in a later episode, he's just jacked. His forearms and his biceps, he is jacked under that Partridge Family jacket.
A planet that disappears all the time, Brigadoon-like, but not completely. Yes, thank you, Keith.
Yeah.
I had to call attention to Steven or Steven's attention to this.
Sitting for 12 days, so this episode takes place over 12 days. Just coincidental that they happen to show up right as the planet appears, which makes no sense, but okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to ignore that.
I thought that effect of the planet showing up was very TOS as well.
Yeah. So they talked about how each visit grows shorter, which made me start to think, how long ago did this expedition land here? And I've got to say it has to be at least tens of thousands of years, if not longer. If you're only there for, I mean, even at the end where they're like, oh, it's going to be there for a couple of years. I can't remember exactly how long they'd say.
30.
Like, oh, it does say 30 years. After being gone 60 years, we're still talking more than thousands of years for the population to have swelled and then shrunk and then all that. Like, you're talking about these people had to have been an ancient alien race exploring the galaxy long before Earth even had humans as we know them, which not again, but to me, I'm like, that's the more interesting concept. Do they know the progenitors? Do they know this race that Picard and them found that seeded the galaxy? Let's talk about what alien races were exploring the galaxy before humans came out, and nobody seems the least bit curious or even asks.
That's a really good point. But just like Doral and Dax, I was just like, let's have sex.
Are we certain that it was a constant 60 years, or was that part of this shift? Because it could have been the ratio could have been shifting. I don't know.
The ratio could have been. It just definitely feels like it was a long time. And if they weren't an ancient race, that should at least be mentioned. But I get the impression that they were a race that is probably gone from the galaxy, and they're the last remnants, and they left a long time ago.
Yeah, he did say multiple centuries, and that's pretty much it. That's the only number they really pointed out. But even that still is worth noting, certainly.
Starfleet's been out for 150 years at this point.
Yeah.
So you guys, and I'm already asking the question. So, did you think? I kept thinking all along, what is this guy up to? What's the shady? What's the actual?
I took him face value.
I thought there was something shady eventually.
There were a couple of times they were playing it like that, where you don't really see him having the conversations with the people on the planet. He just says, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to go take care of a couple things. I'm going to go talk to them, comes back, and you don't see that. You don't ever see it happen. So it feels like he might have been lying.
Doesn't somebody essentially bring up his first wife? Or his white
girl?
They
bring up
like
a
fiance.
Needs to marry one of the other locals.
That's what, yes. So in my mind, it's like, oh, you already have a girlfriend and kids, or whatever. He's cheating on them.
It's more like a betrothed or something. Like he was like an arranged coupling that he's skipping out on.
It was not arranged. They were asking him to decide between two different women because they only have 30 people. So his options are very limited, and he wasn't into either one. So I don't think it was a betrothed or arrangement. They were just like, these are your two options because these are all we have. You need to pick one. And he's like, I don't want to. That's the impression I got. Was he was like, no, I don't like my choices, so I'm not going to pick.
Again, I'll say if Dax walks in, it'd be like, who? It'd be like, what? Who? You? I don't know these people you're telling me about. You know, the person you were betrothed to. I don't know who you're talking about. There's only 30 of us. Okay. What's the name again?
Yeah.
We're only in this when we're in that consciousness. I don't talk to them. So I only have so much time. So I really don't know them.
With only 30 people, he talks to every one of them. And that's how he knows he doesn't want to be with those other two women.
He definitely does when he's corporeal. Maybe that's another reason why he's like, we got to do this, Dax, right now.
I mean, I agree with you though. Terry Farrell, top choice.
Yeah.
Oh wait, going back to the question that was brought up earlier. Well, so why would they care about it? Why wouldn't they just want to stay conscious or stay as consciousness instead of being corporeal? I think that's the storyline that comes up quite a bit when you have spirits and ethereal things. It's because it's boring, or rather, if you can't taste or touch or do anything, it's just sort of, you know.
But then he makes the comment late in the episode of, we'll get to know each other in ways we never could this way. So I agree with your point to an extent, but then he tries to sell Dax on it by being like, no, this is a really cool experience.
I guess he did sell her on it. So maybe, actually, Jimmy, maybe you're onto something there where he's like, you didn't think this is good. Just wait till you get out.
Yeah,
No,
it just wasn't written consistently. That's part of the problem with the episode.
No, it's both. I mean, it's if you have the ability to be both, you would look forward to probably both experiences. It's just
yes, that's true.
But that's what you would get out of being corporeal.
Okay, no, that's a fair point. I will say this episode had a bunch of different people writing it. A story by Hilary Bader and Evan Summers, teleplay by Mark O'Connell. Hilary has 19 writing credits. Most recently, in 2002, she wrote 30 episodes of Gotham Girls, which looks like an animated television series. She died in 2002, so that's why that's her most recent credit. Unfortunately, she was only 50 years old when she died. But as far as Star Trek credits go, she wrote for the video games Star Trek Klingon and Star Trek Borg, which were after this. She wrote 3 episodes of Next Gen, or at least story credit for the Loss, Hero Worship, and Dark Page, which was the Lexana. Then she wrote for Lewis and Clark New Adventure Superman, then wrote an episode of Voyager, which we haven't seen yet. It's one of the early season 1 episodes. And then she's got writing credits for 4 episodes of DS9. We've already seen 2 of them, Battle Lines and Rules of Acquisition. And then there's one more after this at the end of season 3. So Star Trek liked her. They used her a bit. Evan Summers, best known for The Seeker, Star Trek Voyager, Deep Space Nine, and Baywatch. He's got writing credits for 3 episodes of DS9, the Battle Lines again, Melora in season 2, where Bashir falls in love with the differently abled woman. And then this is his last DS9 credit. His Voyager credit is also an early season 1 episode, and then he did the Baywatch. And then our teleplay by Mark O'Connell, he is best known for Deep Space Nine, where he has 4 writing credits, and those are his only 4 writing credits. He wrote Second Sight in season 2, this episode, and then For the Cause in season 4, and Who Mourns for Morn in season 6. So not very many credits between these people, but yeah, that's who wrote it. A lot of hands in it. To the Quark storyline, he tries to tell Kira she's his 1 millionth customer, and she actually starts to go with it. I've never won anything before, which I appreciated and liked, but it so didn't work. And I will say, I already listened to the Greatest Gen podcast, and they made a point of, why doesn't Quark just have a reception for all the senior officers in the Hall Suite, and then he could get Kira? Focusing on her and targeting her is his downfall. He needs to make it less obvious. But
yeah, maybe I'm making your guys' point, but I feel like that. Well, and like I said, I didn't really like that storyline, and maybe to that point,
it's dumb.
It was as lazy as he was in coming up with, "You're the millionth customer."
Despite Jeffrey Combs, it was a dumb storyline.
Is Quark just doing it for money?
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Although I think he would definitely use that Kira program if he created it.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, he'd rather have a Dax program, but I think he'd use Kira.
Yes, I agree with that part too. Yep.
So there's a scene right after this where Durrell is hitting on Dax on the bridge of the Defiant, real hard. Mm-hmm. And if you notice, out of focus in the background, Cisco is staring at them the entire time.
Oh yeah,
and I loved that detail.
Yep, I did, and I thought he was annoyed, but then he plays it like he's not that annoyed.
No, I think he's happy for her, but I think he's suspicious at first, which makes sense.
I would.
Just such an interesting moment that they didn't develop that at all. That was just a blurry background.
Yeah.
Dax has never climbed a tree, and yet she climbs up, first of all, like 2 inches. And then she's like, oh my God, it's too high. I'm going to kiss you and I'm going to fall. And I'm like, you're going to fall 4 feet. Come on. Yeah. But also, that was a fake. Was that a fake tree? Or did they just nail fake branches onto the tree? Those branches did not wobble in the slightest as they touched them and climbed them.
That makes sense.
But also those branches were perfectly positioned. So I couldn't decide if it was a whole tree was fake or if they just nailed fake platforms that look like branches on a real tree.
That's a good question. I mean, yeah, safety first, I suppose, but still. But I'm with Dax. I have a fear of heights, but I guess I can weigh in that, yeah, that's not where you get afraid of heights. It's when you're, well, I shouldn't say that. I can't speak for anyone who has a fear of heights. It has to be a lot higher than that. I've climbed a lot of trees. Trees I like climbing.
I will say, nod to the director, a young Jonathan Frakes, if you've ever heard of him, did do a good job of making it seem like she was high up from the shots after she climbed it, even though we had several wide shots that showed she wasn't. So I think he did the best he could with the situation he was given.
He directed Pulp Fiction, right?
No.
He did. He was involved in a lot of horny Star Trek episodes.
Maybe it got extra horny because he was directing. Or maybe he was like, horny? I volunteer. I volunteer as tribute.
Yeah, there you go.
Darrell and Dax are going to count each other's spots. Did he have that many spots? It didn't seem like it.
I think he was intimating that they're under his clothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Flork is so not sly when he's trying to take the holographic picture on the stairs. Like, it's ridiculous.
And yeah, is he the one that says, what are you going to do with Kira in the holosuite?
Odo,
yes.
But then they're like, oh, we just don't want to be naked. He's like, I'm doing a training program, which I thought was a good cover, even though his technique was awful. But then, like, Odo and Kira saw right through it and like, yeah, you're just going to make her naked. We're not doing that. I guess that's because their uniform is so form-fitting. If her uniform wasn't so form-fitting, taking pictures like that, the AI would not be able to extrapolate the nudity.
That's what I was going to say. Is that whole imager like AI? It's not early AI because it's 24th century AI, but essentially, and that's where it's like, is it like, and I can't speak for you guys, but there's all kinds of, especially now with AI, I think it's exploding. The idea of, catch Britney, it used to be Britney Spears, whatever. I'll say Sydney Sweeney, although you can see Sydney Sweeney naked anywhere, but they put her
anywhere,
her head on a porn, in a porn movie or whatever. But also, it made me think of what is kind of happening along those lines. Not so much of AI, but although it's probably going to get worse now. The concept of not torture porn, but revenge porn, where that's more of a thing where, and I guess it's expanded into this. And I'm heading outside, but where, I have a naked picture of my ex-girlfriend and I start posting them online. But now there's the idea of you can manipulate images and try and do that. And I know that's already been going on, but this is just making it easier to do. So to me, the holo imager is like the advanced version. And to me, maybe that's why he was so obvious about it, but it still seems like it could be better. What's that?
I would assume if we were to extrapolate Trek history, that fad happened in the 21st century and died out. So by the time he's trying to revive it, it's long gone.
You're right. Yeah. That's a good point, Jimmy, that, people get their stuff together, but
there'll be enough people, both men and women, who are willing to have themselves scanned. And I hope they're properly compensated for it. Legitimately, you do not need to steal and sneak and cheat to get,
Well, and just to back, I'm sorry, Keith.
Well, there are several things I want to get to before I forget. Because I remembered an idea that I came up with during the episode, that they touch on something somewhat briefly, which is just I can't believe how like monumentally kind of significant about the transporter technology. And that's something that he could have done here, actually. So their solution, if you recall, for Dax going to the planet was to alter her transporter code or her
Yeah.
transporter buffer, essentially,
We
right?
could use the transporter buffer to match my quantum matrix to yours, to which I wrote, oh, more transporter magic.
So it seems like she even said something like being there for 6 hours. So I guess she like was loaded in the buffer, and they were just manipulating things, and then just spit her back out. So
Brian wasn't even involved.
so yeah, like so you have like a hollow camera.
Good point, Keith.
So first of
There
all,
is a parallel there.
yeah. So first of all, like as far as AI goes, I mean that's just ways of saying that the computer is doing extrapolations or it's thinking and imagining, but
you can't match my extrapolation. I'll tell you that right now.
right. But Star Trek scanners I mean they have things where they can just do sweeps and X-rays and all kinds of other things. You would think it would be something along those lines. I mean, that's probably why you would have all those records in, like, say, like a TNG ship or Enterprise, where we would have, I guess, personnel files, or they don't seem to have to deal with the same kinds of things when they're making holographic images of each other on the ship. So anyway, so theoretically, couldn't Quark have gotten transporter logs or something like that? Or you would think there would be some sort of communication between a transporter buffer and a holosuite.
Yeah, and he also
some
didn't
sort of
seem to even
translator.
need that, because just hacking their personnel file got him enough
Right.
information to get there.
Which
But
shouldn't
yes,
have been
transporter
enough
logs should be plenty.
either. I wonder if they ever thought about using transporter buffers for cosmetic surgery.
I have.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, you know how they go through those things where they're doing all the prosthetics and then the surgery sometimes, and
Well,
They
for
just
disguises.
decided they don't need it. They're too good for that. They're beyond those physical concerns.
Yeah, they've talked about curing illnesses, or when they've turned back the clocks, and I know that's
right.
Series, but they've done it other times. So yeah, I don't.
Well, I guess what I mean is for when they're doing missions, you know how they sometimes have to wear disguises or try to make them into other species and so forth.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
Although, plastic surgery should have really expanded. They're going to all these lengths to get Kira, and our guy Tyron is so into her, and I'm not sure where the writers were wanting to go with this, but it seems like I don't know if he actually says it, but he more or less does say, I must have her, which is it just feels like it's a possessive thing, and I gotta score this off, rather than, oh, I'm really in love with this person, or really.
Oh, it's super creepy. No, it's just, I'm rich, I can do whatever I want.
It's totally that.
When you're famous, they let you grab them by the.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's I don't know how far we are from Pretty Women here. Pretty Woman is the classic love story of a John whose prostitute falls in love with him, vice versa. But it's and so that's the thing. It's like, and then there are plenty of romantic comedies where the guy's like, and actually at Wayne's World, the first Wayne's World, Wayne says of Cassandra, I will have her. She will be mine. And it's in a very joking sense, but there is the thing of, oh, I'm really into but that was a little different in that, I think it was different in that there were reasons for why he was attracted to her, and he actually wanted to have a relationship with her, not a conquest or whatever. He didn't want a holosuite version of her, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, but that possession thing is always creepy.
It is tricky, and I think even then I would have felt very uncomfortable with that whole thing. And also I'm going to say, I think this is the year that the Robert Redford, Demi Moore, Woody Harrelson, I'll pay you $1 million if you let me.
Indecent Proposal.
Indecent Proposal. There we go. Yeah. So I feel like it's along those lines, but not nearly. Well, you know what? It is the same. Not exactly, but it's along the same lines. Anyway, that's how I felt about it.
I mean, if Quark was Kira's husband, it would be similar. This one, Indecent Proposal was 93, so it would have already been out. Yeah. They
was going to play Quark at one time. No, I'm kidding.
The Defiant manages to stabilize the planet. Darrell says he's gonna build a house for them, which, dude, it's been like a week. You've been on like 3 dates. Way, 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 way too fast. And then he's gonna leave. And, she's cool with that. But then they talk about, oh, we need you to plan. And it's like, you're gonna have 30 years, right? You're going to be gone for 60 years. We know you're still conscious and talking. You have 60 years to plan. You don't have to plan in these last 3 days. You got 60 years to make the plan. So what is the freaking rush? Does Quark let Dax win at Tongo? I mean, Bashir thinks he does, and we're going to find out on Tuesday night. But we had a previous episode where Dax was cleaning everyone's clocks in one of those games, not just Quark's. So I feel like it's Bashir that's wrong in that, and that Dax is actually really good at Tongo. I don't know.
Last week we talked about, hey, you've got 48 hours or whatever to get this taken care of. This week was a very similar kind of false construct of, well, we're going to be cycling out in a couple days or whatever, so you got to make a decision. If I'm the one, you know what? I don't even have to think about it. You are the one. So, yeah. Anyway, sorry, Jimmy, you were saying.
Kira says at this point she has a revenge idea, but they leave that for a moment. We're not going to get right to it, which is a juicy leaving of a scene. I'm very curious. We'll get to a minute whether we're satisfied or not, but very interesting way to end it. Dax offers to stay and requests a 60-year leave from Starfleet. She's not resigning her commission. She's just taking a 60-year leave. That was kind of fun. I actually really liked the scene of Sisko being happy for her and their plan to see each other again. I do believe if Sisko is still alive and kicking 60 years from now, he'd show up and hang out with her because they have such a close friendship. It was a really good scene, and that made me grateful that later when Dax has the goodbye with Sisko, Bashir, and O'Brien on the bridge of the Defiant, because Defiant doesn't have a transporter room, it just has a pad on the bridge, similar to Deep Space Nine itself. They never has spent the expense of building a transporter room for Deep Space Nine. But I was really glad Sisko had this prior scene, because to do it in front of the others would have cheapened it and made it not work as well. So I was glad they had that so they could just have a silent moment in the other scene.
I feel like as forced as that whole scenario was of her saying goodbye, I thought, and especially that scene, I wrote that down as well, Jimmy, that I thought it was earned too. I was touched by that scene.
I have a theory about it, but that's gonna have to wait for a while.
Well, I've got like 3 notes left, so probably
In
not,
this episode,
not very much a while.
No, I mean it won't come up in this episode. It's for much further down the line.
Okay.
Apparently, our buddy Jeffrey Combs owns his own holosuite, so he's like a Bezos or a Musk, right? Like he's ultra rich. He's not just a little rich. And then when Dax is on the planet, I wrote down, "It's me. I'm the problem. It's me," because clearly it was her fault. But yeah, that was really close. That like the planet's beaming away, and I know they're going to destroy the planet, but they also make it very personal for Dax. Like she's about to die in the vacuum of space if they don't beam her out. So
I will say,
it doesn't count.
I thought there was going to be a really cheap way out of her going, and I thought that actually made sense. That like, oh well, she's just not.
We miscalculated.
Yeah, that makes sense rather than, oh, I changed my mind, or I was still in he's a bad person. Something's going to be revealed. I did prefer that outcome.
We also have a scene of Sisko checking on her later in her quarters, and she's devastated. And that scene really worked for me. The Sisko Dax scenes in her quarters, the two of them, those 2 scenes were great.
I agree.
Highlights of the episode.
Again, I thought he was going to mind meld and tell her to forget, which he still could have done that even if he can't actually mind him.
Just, hey, forget about it.
I've heard of this being done before.
We suppressed a serial killer. We can suppress a romance.
Do you have any more notes, Jimmy?
Just my alternate episode.
Yeah, I just have 2. One is love a good mat, and I think it might have been mat. It might have just been a painting of when they're first on the planet, the complex or whatever they live on. I like that. And then I guess I already hit this one, the Dax dirty talk, and maybe some of that's Darrell too. But you know what? It's probably Dax. It's Terry Farrell. I mean, imagining her talking to me. My alternate episode, it's an easy one. It's literally low-hanging fruit. Well, maybe it's not literally low-hanging fruit, but it's just the Triple X version of this. And I did not do any research into that. So, and I shot up, I think.
My alternate episode was not in the Gamma Quadrant. It was in the Alpha or Beta where the Defiant could easily get to, even if they never discovered the wormhole.
Mhm.
It was told over several years. Dax met this man early in her career, and she kept coming back repeatedly. So we
Hmm.
have time to
This is
develop a
good.
relationship. We
Yeah.
show
Oh, that makes
flashback that
a lot
eventually
more
brings us up
sense.
to the present day. Time to develop the relationship, time to be working on the mystery of the planet, and it's not so rushed. I will say DS9 does an episode that's set well in the future that's told
Yeah.
over years. And
Okay.
so we haven't seen that yet, and that's probably why my mind went there. It's a little bit ripping off that concept, but I really think
Still.
if we'd done like a younger Dax and done
Uh-huh.
a series of flashbacks, it would make way more sense than what we got. Given where the show is going and where the characters are going, we could not do it as a future series of flashbacks unless we erase the timeline. And that's too close to the episode that actually happens that I mentioned a second ago. But yeah,
It was probably helping. It's probably happening in the Kelvin universe, actually.
it's on Patreon, so I'm allowed to break our clean rating, Keith, from the gestures I am giving you right now about bringing up the Kelvin.
That's a lot better than my alternate because mine was just a bunch of 3-minute scenes. So I like that a lot better.
Let's get to the rankings then. Who was your shady character in Meridian?
Work.
Absolutely, that's mine as well.
Yeah, I had Darrell and I forgot to change it because it turned out because I was so sure he was gonna be the bad guy. Something wrong with him. So I'm gonna make it unanimous.
Okay, great. Who is your annoyance in Meridian?
Tyron.
That was Darrell for me. I actually couldn't stand him. I thought he was pretty awful.
Yeah, same.
He's just way too much puppy.
Yeah.
Not substantive enough. I think Dax is better than this, honestly.
That's a good point. I agree on that part.
So Darrell for you as well.
No, I'm going with Tyron.
Okay. He's a good annoyance. I just realized we did not even mention the other guest star this week. Selton Rockel, that's the main woman that led the colony, was played by Christine Healy, best known for Murder by Numbers, ER. She did 3 episodes. 1 episode of Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman and 1 episode of Martin. She has 62 credits, but she never got beyond those brief guest appearances. She did do an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer where she played the Guardian, but this is her only Trek credit. The only thing I said only about was it's her only Trek credit, which is actually true. I did not say only 62 credits, Keith. Patreon viewers, Keith is mocking me with an only background.
You want to have
You're having a drink with the Meridian.
Jedzi.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Why would you pick anybody else?
There's no way I could go anywhere else.
Also, apparently she falls in love really easy. She just spent a little time with her. And a good time.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I want to be fair to her character. There must be something about Darrell that we did not get to see in this episode that made it make sense, because she's been standoffish with a lot of people, and it has to be somebody she really clicks with. It just felt like she fell in love so easily.
Maybe he really has some pheromones going on.
Really large,
I'm gonna say
I'm just kidding. It could be
Tyron.
bigger than Morin's. Sorry, Keith.
Tyron.
That's
He
you having
might buy the expensive stuff. Yes.
He would buy you a top tier drink. Actually, he wouldn't, because he's a selfish jerk. Right now, our bottom of the season is the Abandoned, which is the
That makes
Jimmy-Dar,
sense.
the
Okay.
Jimmy-Dar child. This is worse than that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is an awful episode, but based on DS9 at this point, it's definitely the worst of the season.
Yeah, I think I was so into the sex stuff that I forgot the other half of the episode that I didn't care for. And then the forcedness, yeah.
Next week, I am going to ignore the IMDb synopsises because they give too much away, and I'm going to memory alpha and slightly editing Star Trek Generations. In the late 23rd century, the USS Enterprise B is on her maiden voyage, and Kirk is no longer in the captain's chair. The ship must rescue Orion refugees from a mysterious energy ribbon. 78 years later, one of the El Orion survivors leads the crew of the Enterprise D into a deadly confrontation with the Duras sisters as he plots to re-enter the paradise of the ribbon that nearly destroyed him years prior.
Oh, you said the Duras sisters. Now I'm really into Duras sisters. Kirk. Did AI?
The
create
Duras
that synopsis?
sisters got a big screen appearance.
Yeah. I think AI created this synopsis just for me.
Also, the main villain is not the Duras sisters, although we love them. It's Malcolm McDowell from Clockwork Orange.
Really?
Yes.
This is insane.
Yeah. And Whoopi's in this movie. The only Star Trek movie she has a substantive role. So,
If Julia Louis-Dreyfus is involved in any way, then I'm sure we are living in a matrix.
Kirk is not the only original series actor to appear in this movie as well. But that's where we'll leave it from now. Until then, live long.
In this dimension or any other one, and prosper.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?